The chief executive of Dubai Airports says he's seen a huge demand in travel from the United Kingdom after they opened a travel corridor last month. Paul Griffiths says he understands wider anxiety around travel, though he hopes the vaccine may at last turn things round.
One of the things we're fighting at the moment is a lack of confidence in travel, because people are worried about quarantine, they're worried about the rules changing, and having a vaccine which effectively means that people can travel with greater confidence is a huge step forward. We are still requiring PCR tests on arrival from many countries, but we've got 52 testing stations now, so we can do that. And since we opened the UK DXB travel corridor in the middle of November, we've seen an absolute surge in bookings from the UK. So I think, the UK DXB travel corridor is a great example of where I think the world's heading towards recovery, and we're very keen to be at the leading edge of that.
But there are really two phases, aren't there? I mean, we have three phases. We had the first bit. We're now going into the sort of the interim phase from vaccination until somewhere near herd immunity. If you look forward to middle to late next year, do you imagine that a vaccination certificate will be required before you go to DXB?
We're hoping not to make it a mandatory requirement, because I think the testing and quarantine protocol will remain in place for those who haven't been vaccinated. But clearly the world's got to get its head round what this new phase is and how we're going to monitor the difference between those who've been vaccinated and those who haven't. I'm old enough to remember the little yellow books we used to carry around when we travelled, which said what vaccinations we had, which was key to getting into different countries. Maybe we can go to a digital version of that. But I think at the moment, this is very much dependent on bilateral government-to-government agreements, as we've done with our travel corridor.
So is it going to be up to the airlines or the airport on this question of whether to seek vaccination? Because obviously we're all familiar with Alan Joyce's comments at Qantas. There, the onus is on the airline. Can you see the onus, and I know you don't want to, but can you see the onus being moved to the airport?
I don't think it should be either on the airline or the airport. I think it really should be down to the individual health authorities of each country to specify what the protocol is. The difficulty we've got at the moment, there's no such thing as a global approach to this. And therefore, I think every country is approaching this with a different degree of either risk mitigation or risk management. So we have to rely, I think, on bilateral agreements between the relevant health authorities. And that will depend very much on what the testing protocol has been, how each government has dealt with the pandemic, and what the results are, to give that bilateral confidence at each end of the route. But personally, I don't think a requirement for a vaccination to board an aeroplane is actually the right way to go. It's going to be difficult to police, it's going to be very restrictive, and it probably may apply in countries like Australia, where they have a particular approach, but that's going to be very problematic in other parts of the world.